You're listening to the Rewrite the Rules podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Harriet.
I'm Beth.
And I'm Natalie.
If you want to work towards achieving true food and body image freedom, you are in the right place.
Rewrite the Rules podcast is your survival guide to letting go of harmful societal expectations and unlearning any unhelpful beliefs that are stopping you from having a healthy and loving relationship with food and yourself.
Our mission is to help you feel heard, understood, and empower you to step out of the box and rewrite your rules so you can live life on your terms. Thank you for tuning in. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Rewrite the Rules. We are super excited to be not only back together, but of course here with all of you beautiful listeners in the hope that our experiences and advice that we give throughout this episode can help any of you out there struggling food or body related issues, because that is truly our mission.
Yes, today we have a topic that we literally can't wait to dive into, and it's all things fad diet related. So we're going to be getting into the nitty gritty of all the fad diets we've followed throughout our individual journeys, how they affected us, and ultimately how we broke free from them.
Yes, and so obviously, like Natalie just said, we're going to be talking about certain diets and our experience of them. And we're going to be talking about these diets through the lens of like breaking free from diet culture and, you know, ultimately stop dieting. But of course, we have to give a trigger warning and a disclaimer that in this episode, because we're talking about diets and how they work, there will be mention of restriction, there will be mention of calories, macronutrients. And so if you just think that this episode might trigger you even just a little bit, you're allowed to miss this one. And give it a miss and tune into one of our future episodes. If not, then let's get on with the episode. Okay, should I go first?
Jump straight in and tell us what crazy diet you followed.
Yeah, well, guys, I honestly have tried so many diets throughout my lifetime. Honestly, I could write down hundreds. Wait, I'm just going to open my Coke Zero, guys. Are we ready for some ASMR?
Yeah,
okay.
Go for it. That was brilliant.
That's beautiful, thank you.
You are welcome. I also wonder if any of our listeners noticed our new and improved intro.
Oh yeah, we took ages on that, guys. Literally.
Yeah. If you noticed, can you just DM us and say I noticed, and we'll know what you're talking about.
Definitely think it sounds a hell of a lot better now.
Me too.
Definitely. But sorry, I digress. Okay, diet. The first diet that I'm going to talk about is the keto diet.
Ooh.
Yeah. Did any of you go on the keto diet at all?
I didn't, but I know many people that do it, have done it, like rave about it.
Yes.
Yeah. I've never done it, but it's because I was just too much of a picky eater. So we've done most diets, but not that one.
Okay, well, for anyone who doesn't know, the keto diet stands for ketogenic. And essentially, in terms of how it works, it's a high fat, moderate protein, and then low to no carb diet. The goal of the keto diet is to get your body into this state of ketosis. And it's basically in this state, the body ends up burning fat instead of burning glucose. And that essentially means that your body starts primarily burning fat for fuel. For people who want to lose weight, this diet it's marketed as, I guess, like one of like, I don't know how to explain this. It's like, it was always marketed as this like science-backed diet, which I think for a lot of people made it really appealing, including myself. I was like, oh, wow, like there's actually science behind this. This is why it works. It isn't just like a stupid diet. There's actually quote unquote justification behind it. And so if you are on the keto diet, you're looking at basically trying to consume as much fat as possible. And so typical foods that one would eat, a lot of meats, a lot of eggs, a lot of oil, a lot of nuts. And then the food that you would avoid is basically any carbohydrates. No bread, no pasta, no cereal, no rice. And the most like fucked up thing I think about the keto diet as well is that it also like demonizes like certain like vegetables and fruits, because of course vegetables and fruits also contain carbohydrates. And so I remember when I was on this diet, I wasn't allowed to eat onions, for example.
It's like the main staple every dinner, like that you make.
Yeah.
Whack an onion in it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So basically, like one of like the main rules of the keto diet when it comes to like veg is that you can only have vegetables that grow above ground. So no root vegetables, basically. You know, if you were going to have fruit, you could have like berries, but you couldn't have bananas, for example. I don't think you could have apples. Very restrictive in that sense. Something that was really interesting about the keto diet as well is that it was kind of like separated into categories as well in terms of like how you followed this diet. So for example, you had the lazy ketoers, and those are the people who, you know, stuck to basically low carb, and so would have vegetables and, you know, would cut out like the main carbohydrates. And then you'd have the strict ketoers who would literally try and have 0 grams of carbs. And then you would have the quote unquote dirty ketoers who would literally just eat like bacon, eggs, meat, like a lot of butter, and like, yeah, essentially just eating like meat all day.
And that would actually do me in.
Yeah, I heard like that someone was like putting butter in like their cup of tea or coffee. I don't know much about like the keto diet, but I've heard like snippets of things like that, and honestly it just like turned my stomach hearing that.
Yeah, so there are really weird things that people do on the keto diet. There's honestly a massive list, and one of those things is putting butter in your coffee because you're increasing the fat consumption of your coffee, and you can put it in your tea. I used to put coconut oil in my coffee. Yeah, so like,
What did it taste?
You can't really taste it. It just created this layer of like oil on top of your coffee.
The things that we do.
Yeah. Another interesting weird thing about the keto diet was it was really common to buy these things called keto sticks, and essentially they're like a pack of these like sticks that you pee on, and it tells you whether you're in ketosis or not.
I'd heard that. I've seen people do that.
Yeah, I did that.
Wow.
Apparently they're like super inaccurate. If you're on the keto diet, like and you're serious about it, you'd probably do that every day just to double check like you're on the right track.
And this is all done in the name of weight loss.
Yeah. This was all done in the name of weight loss. So like other random weird things is like these things called fat bombs that you used to make. I used to make like put into like an ice tray mold, like dark chocolate, cream, olive oil, and then you put it in the refrigerator, and then it comes out, it's like a mold, and it's just pure fat.
I can't. Sorry, it just sounds horrendous.
What would you do with that ice cube? Would it be an ice cube? Did you put it in the freezer?
You just put it in your mouth.
You just eat it. So it's just like a mold. It's like, it just, honestly, it's like a mold, solidified fat.
Fat ice cream.
Yeah, essentially. And it's hard and it's so rich.
Obviously, I've heard about people being on it, but not to like this. It said not like the ins and outs of it. And it actually sounds like torture. Oh,
yeah. And talking of torture, something, again, that's very common and known in the keto world is the keto flu. So basically, the keto flu is essentially a flu that one would expect to have if they went on the keto diet. And it's like a normal. And it's like, oh, no, don't worry. If you go on keto, you'll get sick for like 2 weeks at the beginning. But that's normal because your body's just like, you know, preparing to burn fat into the glucose. And this is just what happens.
If anyone's watching this on YouTube, watching our podcast on YouTube, all you're going to see is our shocked faces.
Just like this.
Eyes wide open. Being like, what the hell?
Like, do you know what? When I listen to people talking about it as well, they're like, I'm like, how do you feel? And they're like, I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. So why the hell are you doing it? You are not supposed to feel that way in day-to-day life. You're not supposed to feel exhausted, but it's like, oh, it's all right. Like, I'm going to lose weight, so it's all right to feel like I want to have a nap every 5 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
How did it make you feel, Harriet?
So this is the interesting thing is, again, after doing these episodes, I've realized a lot about myself, that I convinced myself of a lot of things. And I convinced myself that the keto diet gave me energy and that carbs drained my energy. So I convinced myself, I just don't, like, carbs just don't work with my body. I definitely was tired and I definitely thought about food all the time. I thought about carbs all the time because the thing is, it's like my favorite food is carbs. It's just the truth. Like, my favorite dish is spaghetti. I could eat spaghetti for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I love sushi. I love like crisps. I love carbs. I'm a carbs girl. It makes me really sad that I like convinced myself that I just couldn't have it.
In that time, were you caught in a binge restrict cycle, or had that not started? Were you just strictly sticking to this, or were there times where you were overeating on certain things because of...
It's actually really hard to remember because I put so much of a closed the chapter on it so much that like it's hard to remember. But I definitely was binging on carbs, I would say like once a month, like once every 2 weeks or something like that. Funnily enough, like I think I'm surprised at how long I was able to sustain this for. Not that like 2 weeks is a long time. Again, I think I definitely just convinced myself that this works for me. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And because there was science behind it, and the way this diet was talked about was like, this is an evidence-based diet. Here's the research. Certain family members who were like, yep, if you want to live a long, happy, healthy life, keto is the way forward.
And coupling that with the idea that carbs are the enemy and that carbs are a demon and like a really like negative food source, I can really understand how keto would make sense for a lot of people, and how it was very easy, like adding that with like the scientific proof, how it was really believable.
Yeah, literally. And people like referred to keto as like very much like a lifestyle. And yes, it was a diet, but it also was a lifestyle in the sense of it consumed everything. I used to watch keto bloggers like on YouTube. I used to bake all the time. I've never baked so much in my life. I made keto bread. I made keto
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I made this bread using this supplement. I don't know if it's a supplement, but I don't know what it is. It's called like psyllium husk. I actually don't know what it is, but I bought this stuff that you can make bread using it. And I used to make bread. I used to make like the fat bombs. I used to make like cupcakes, and I bought so much almond flour that you can't even imagine. And almond flour is spenny.
Amazing the money and time you were putting in to just eat the foods that you really wanted.
Yeah.
Like you were still trying to bake the bread because you wanted the bread, but you wanted it to like fit the diet that you were doing.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing, like the amount of physical time baking and cooking takes up.
Yeah.
It really just supports the fact that you said like it consumed your whole life. Every spare moment you had was either thinking about this diet or doing this diet.
And because I was so ingrained in diet culture, again, like you guys were saying, this gave me the permission slip to cut out carbs. Literally, it was like, you have permission to not eat carbs anymore. And I was like, oh, great. Here's the research behind it. Great. This will give you more energy. Great. Because I guess when you're dieting, I feel like there's something in the back of your mind that knows like this isn't the right thing to do. This isn't sustainable. And especially because I had like a stint of what I would say was more of a eating disorder earlier in my life. So kind of when I went into this like dieting phase, I almost felt like keto was the right thing to do. Like I didn't have as much of that like dissonance, like, oh, I'm eating in a disordered way, because the way that this diet was laid out was like, you have permission to do this.
Yeah, I think that it does. Whenever you see a diet and it's laid out or something's given to you, you feel more at ease and safer to do it, because you almost feel like, well, surely this is right because there's evidence or somebody's advising me to do it. I haven't just done it off my own back, you know. It's like I've got someone holding my hand whilst doing it.
The fact that you were watching YouTubers who were doing it, you think there's so many other people that are doing it and are telling me they're feeling so much more energized, they're losing X amount of weight, this is the best thing ever. Of course you're not going to question it.
Yeah, exactly. And so yes, there apparently was so much research behind it. And the thing is, there's research that shows that if you did a keto diet, you can lose weight. You only lose weight if you can sustain the diet.
Yeah, in the end, you can't. And I know from other people, you can't keep it up and you end up then relapsing. And then all you see is, well, that was the thing that made me lose weight, so that's the only thing that's going to work right now. And then you just constantly in this loop, and it's like it's like any diet, you end up doing it, putting on the weight probably twice more, and then in this limbo, like, well, I have to go back to it because it's the only thing that works. Look, it just doesn't work, point blank, because this is the evidence that it doesn't.
Exactly.
Because you're having to go back and forth.
The diet itself, the premise of cutting out carbs and increasing your fat consumption didn't originate for weight loss purposes. It wasn't something that was created for people to lose weight. It was actually developed in order to treat epilepsy in children, because in like the 20s, they did a study that basically showed that if you cut out carbs, it's particularly effective at treating epilepsy, specifically in children. And it actually was the results on that were pretty incredible. But as the years went on, a drug treatment came out. So they didn't need to do the keto diet, but that was the purpose of the keto diet. And then for whatever reason, it became this trend in like, I'd say like 2010, 11, 12, 13. Something, it was around that era where people started talking about the keto diet as a means to lose weight. I think the most manipulative, I feel like the keto diet is just very manipulative, because it had all these claims of it reduces cancer, it helps you age slower, whatever the fuck that means. How can you age slower? But I imagine it, I don't know whatever that means. And all these benefits, weight loss, and this is why, because biologically this is what happens. So it was very good at explaining how it worked in that sense. But something that was never addressed is, can you sustain this? No. And I remember this is one woman I used to follow on YouTube, and I won't say her name, but I was watching her for years, and she just kept falling off track all the time. That's the language she used. Oh, falling off track. And she was blind. She's blind to the fact that like, this, because this isn't working, but she, like me, convinced herself, well, it appears that she's convinced herself that this is the only way. Again, she proper made it her lifestyle, and she had a bloody YouTube video about it, YouTube channel about it. So yeah, it became this very trendy thing, and I don't feel like it's as trendy at the moment. Like you said, Natalie, I think probably everyone knows someone who's on it. Yeah. So what do you make of that? What do you make of the keto diet?
I don't know. It's like anything, isn't it? But more so because I do know people will buy into this more because of it having scientific, evidence backed up, alongside it. And also because of the products that you can buy, because, they've made it look glamorous with, you can make this bread. And it's like, look, you just want a loaf of Warburtons, let's be honest. You just want a normal white piece of toast, but you're going to spend about 2 hours making this bread because it's going to make you lose weight. But it's like, when you look at the long-term effects of it, and I always say this when people tell me that they're going to do a diet, and I say, can you keep this up at the weekend when you go out with your friends, when you go out for a meal? Can you do this when you're out sitting at the table? Can you ask for that slice of keto bread when you go out for a Turkish? If you can't, then it's not going to work, and you're not going to be happy, and then you are going to end up just craving and wanting all of those things that you can't have anymore.
That's the thing, like when we say like diets don't work, like they work, but I don't know how healthy it is for you, how much you can sustain it, how happy you're going to be on it.
I do really sympathise though with people who fell into this sort of diet, because obviously we were told since we were very young that carbs were bad, and anything that was high sugar or high fat was bad. So I can imagine it was almost a bit of a revelation for people to be like, oh my God, I'm allowed to eat fat and I can eat as much of it as I want. And I can imagine a lot of people felt that was really empowering, and I can completely understand that and sympathize with those sorts of people, because it is that revelation moment where you realize you're allowed to consume something. And I can just really see why people got invested in it.
Yeah, I got into it. I spent a lot of time, a lot of money on this diet. I did not look at the research, despite the fact I was justifying it because it was a research-backed approach. And yeah, but I didn't look at the research. And I think many people who promote this diet probably also don't look at the research, because I actually like looking at research, but this I just believed blindly. It was a crazy ride. I've never ever do it again. I don't recommend. 0 out of 10.
-1 out of 10.
-1 out of 10.
So shall I should I carry on with my diet that I followed?
Tell us.
It is very similar. I really see similarities with the keto diet, Harriet, to what I followed. But I'm just going to call this the PT diet. So I was a completely blank canvas. You could have told me anything. I would have believed it's going to make me lose weight. I'll give you the rundown of what I actually got given to eat. So I think it was in the morning, 110 grams of lean beef mince with green peas. Can you imagine the smell
morning?
in the morning when I used to go to work, making it at 7 a.m, frying up beef mince?
Wait, for breakfast?
For breakfast.
Why?
Protein, get the protein in. Then I would have lunch, and it was like 90 grams of salmon, and again, broccoli, green beans, anything green. Then I'd have a third meal, and it will be a tin of tuna with some lettuce. And again, dinner would be 90 grams of salmon, green veg. And then my treat, guys, would be Rice Krispies bar. Yay!
All of the veg and fruit sounds very green. Were you
It was only
allowed
like
anything
green.
like carrots or?
No, if it was orange, if it was red, it's a no-go. It has to be green. I wasn't allowed any fruit.
Are you allowed onions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was allowed the
Okay, great.
I don't actually think I actually cooked with onions because everything was so, it was literally just the protein and the veg. It was never like any sauce with it. So I actually don't think an onion was consumed.
Oh my God. And when you were doing this, was anyone around like, Natalie, what the fuck are you doing?
My mum was like, you're waking me up with the stench of that beef mince every morning.
And what did you say? What was your response?
I think I got quite defensive, I think. And I was like, well, this is what I'm doing. Or as well, I remember like I used to just have, those turkey rashers, and I'd like make 4 of them, and I'd just put them in a bowl and eat them in the morning. Like, it's so miserable.
Oh no.
I actually got a picture of me, and I was looking after my niece, and she's eating like this lovely breakfast, and I'm sitting there with this bowl eating these turkey rashers just dry. It was very much so just like, it was restrictive. It was severely restrictive. I was allowed no fats. I was only allowed black coffee, which I convinced myself that I liked, which I don't like. I only use it if I've had 3 hours sleep and I need to wake myself up. And 4 litres of water a day, up to 4 litres of water. That's what I had to drink. So that was what I ate basically. And sorry to talk about calories here, but I was on 1,099 calories a day. It's madness when I think about it, but that's what I thought. I got this plan given to me, and this is what I thought worked. So my experience of doing it was I stuck to this for nearly a whole year. My willpower was like second to none. Like, I remember one time my mum she saw that things weren't right, but like I wouldn't touch chocolate, I wouldn't have anything. And I remember one time she waved chocolate under my nose. I grabbed the chocolate and I threw it in the kitchen, and she was a bit like and I was like, don't do that. But like I was so adamant on sticking to this, and like I was doing 7 days at the gym because I got obsessed with that. I was doing like 17,000 steps a day, along with working a 5-day week, and I would have to report this back to my PT at the time. So it was like I just felt trapped in this. I felt like I couldn't socialize. I remember going on a holiday whilst I was doing it, and like I think I allowed myself like 1 cake. I was in Berlin, it was Christmas, and like I allowed myself 1 cake, and like I remember sitting there and eating it with my friend and being like, oh my God, this is like amazing. But that was it. Like, move on, not having any more. I just became really difficult to be around. Like, I had mood swings, so up and down. I obviously lost a lot of weight. My hair started falling out. I lost my periods, and also I could not stop going to the toilet. Like, it was probably about 10 times a day. To this day, I think that still affected me, because you can have like distension of your bladder when you drink too much water. So now when I need to go to the toilet, I need to go. Like, there's no holding it whatsoever, which is obviously really difficult. Like, say you're stuck in a traffic jam, which I have been on the M25, and you're there for 3 hours and you have to try and go for a wee on the motorway. But like, that has now stuck with me from drinking 4 litres of water. And yeah, it was just the whole no fats thing obviously really affected me, and that's what probably was due to the loss of my periods. But yeah, I think now obviously finding out research, every fat is a macronutrient, and every macronutrient is needed in our diet. They're there for a reason. So having sort of a restriction of any of that, because obviously I restricted everything. It wasn't just carbs. It was, anything with processed sugar in it. It was anything with natural sugars in it. When you have a restriction of that, your body is going to crave it. And obviously as well, you're going to go into ketosis, like you said, because it's the same, not having fruit. Fruit has carbs in, and they are so important. Carbs are important because it's a release of energy. It's the glucose that you need for the energy that you need to, not to sustain you going to the gym, you to sustain your everyday life, you walking around, and also fats are so needed because we have our time in the month every day. Fats are needed to regulate our hormones, and not only to regulate our period, but to have a healthy period, to have a regular period. And obviously that was the reason, as to why I was no longer having a period. And in actual fact, I've only really got a proper period back now, like probably in this past 2 months. And that was, I'd say, I don't know, 6 years ago now, because I had to be put on the pill. I think when it comes to talking about your menstrual cycle, then not really, it costs money for you to go to the hospital to get a scan, all of this stuff. So they were like, oh, we're going to put you on the pill to see if we can kickstart a period. It's not going to be obviously a natural one, but we're just going to see. And I am very funny with the pill. I wanted to go on a very low estrogen one because I hate the mood swings and everything, and they put me on the lowest estrogen pill that they had. Didn't work, didn't get a period. They put me on another one, and I was on that for maybe 2 years. It obviously wasn't a natural period. I still didn't know if my body was able to produce a natural period. And I come off of the pill maybe 3 months ago. Boy, they've come back with like a vengeance. It's awful, but at least I know now that it is a natural one. But that was my experience, pure hell.
So what was your actual breaking point, Natalie, can I ask?
Breaking point was Christmas for me. It wasn't a breaking point. It was just like what the fuck am I doing? Because it unravelled into having my first binge, because I got given permission to what I wanted over Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and it's like I've been let loose. And yeah, that was like the realisation of, I don't really know what's going on here. But I carried it on because I always went back to it, because I'd have a binge and then I think it was the only thing that made me lose weight. But obviously it was the continuation of all those binges that then it was like, I can't do this anymore. But I still looked at that diet but it worked, but it just was me. There was something in me. I didn't have the willpower to carry it on because other people can do it. So I very much blame myself, when in actual fact, it wasn't me. It was the diet.
Especially as your PT prescribed it to you, of course you're going to feel like that. It's not like you just found it online. You were given it by someone, a human that you know.
Yeah, and you don't think, and this is the thing, I've had this conversation with this said personal trainer. We have had it out. You trust someone, like they're your friend. You don't want to. It felt awkward to say like, "What's this shit you're giving me to eat? Like, why are you making me eat beef mince in the morning?" It's awkward because you feel like it's coming from education that they have that you don't have. So yeah, that's obviously why I just didn't see anything.
Somewhere in your brain though, I think you were already questioning, this doesn't quite make sense. Yeah. But what do you always say, Harriet? You say you didn't fail the diet failed you.
Yep.
Yes.
Always. But Natalie, out of 10, how do you rate the PT diet?
-23.
-23, yeah. Sounds pretty shit. So I guess you don't recommend it.
Not recommended.
Not approved.
You wouldn't get even at one circle. Do you know what I mean? It'd be none.
Be none. Noted.
obviously this PT, I don't want to badmouth them in any way, because they were only going from the education that they had before them. So, you know, you can be angry at a person, but it all stems down from something. They obviously weren't doing it in a horrible way, and I don't think that they ever knew the implications that this was going to have. And I know how sorry they were when I did speak to them about it. So I want to say that. And also I want to say that I'm talking about diets in terms of, obviously we are talking about it in a way that you can become susceptible to it becoming disordered. So that's all I wanted to say to finish.
Yeah. We're talking in a way that it becomes to like consume your entire life, and it's affecting your happiness, and it's negatively affecting relationships and just like your quality of life. And if you are feeling crap, if you're doing something that's making you feel crap, newsflash, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's absolutely okay to, of course, give yourself permission to forgive yourself, forgive the people around you. You know, it's not about being angry for the people who have promoted these diets, except for large corporations who know the truth. You can be angry at them.
Kellogg's.
Yeah, Kellogg's. Spoiler. Beth.
But yeah, speaking about Kellogg, I have done many diets in my lifetime, most of them stemming around like sort of restricting and then binging cycle. So any diet I've done, I've never been very good at it, and I've never managed to last more than a couple of days. So I was a stereotypical yo-yo dieter, just going from one to the next, always falling back into bad habits. But the one diet that I'm going to be talking about today is the Special K diet. And I feel like most people will have at least heard of this, but may not know like the nitty gritty of it. But basically the Special K diet was a 14-day program that involved replacing 2 meals a day with a bowl of Special K cereal. I think there was like a couple of different cereals you could have chosen from, and you just couple that with some low fat milk. They specified low fat milk with the supposed results of dropping a jean size. Now, I've done a bit of digging, obviously. I spoke to you girls about the fact that I fell into a wormhole when I was researching this. But Kellogg's did officially say that individuals can lose up to 6 pounds in 14 days on the Special K diet. You would also have 2 snacks in between these meals that had to be fruits or vegetables or another Special K product. Shock horror. So I don't know whether some of you remember the adverts that were on the TV, but I vividly remember one from 2005, meaning that I was 9 at the time when I was watching this, of women trying and failing to pull up their jeans after they'd, quote, overdone it at Christmas. That is what the advert specified they'd done, and that swapping out their meals for cereal was going to guarantee them to drop a dress size and get back into their jeans. Obviously, the Special K diet has been around for so long, but the diet really took off in the noughties. Like, I found advertisements from like 1980 something. So like, it's been around for a long time, but it really took off in the noughties because of really good advertising. I use the word good, like it was good for marketing, but obviously a horrendous diet. So during this time, the message that women were receiving was to eat less and to skip meals. And that's what a lot of women were doing. So for a brand to come forward and say, don't skip breakfast, instead just have a bowl of cereal twice a day and another meal as well, and we can guarantee you the weight loss that you want. No wonder it became so popular. So I personally attempted swapping out breakfast and tea with this. I do remember seeing some girls bring in cereal to school with them in like little Tupperware containers or Ziploc bags. So this diet really did take off. But honestly, I just loved my school meals so much that I just didn't want to give them up. So I'm like, right, let's get rid of breakfast and get rid of tea. But obviously, as you can imagine, like I can't remember exactly what age I was at this time, but I was obviously in high school because this is where I remember it from. So very young. I was just looking back at the adverts and thinking, God, what were we growing up watching? What were we like growing up consuming on TV? And thinking like, no wonder a lot of our generation has got like really difficult relationships with food. And we hear of so many different eating disorders now. It's because that's what we were sort of shown on TV, and we just like grew up thinking it was like totally normal to think, right, if I can't fit into my jeans, I've got to change my body instead of just buying a new pair of jeans. But for me, I just hate how like the brand was so fully aware that women were skipping meals or skipping breakfast in order to lose weight, and like successfully trying to market their products in that way to like fix an issue, because they knew that that's what women were like vulnerable to in that moment.
What I'm imagining in my head right now,
Go on.
someone at the Kellogg's headquarters in a big meeting room being like, how do we increase our sales for the Special K cereal? And then someone being like, why don't we promote it as a weight loss product?
I was like,
yeah, everyone's like, yeah, that's a great idea. To tell people to swap out a meal, 2 meals for our Special K.
Yeah.
And everyone was like cheering, and yeah, that's just what I'm imagining right now.
Think how much money we're going to make.
Yeah.
It's safe to say that this diet for me wasn't successful, firstly because I just didn't like the cereal. And then secondly, obviously I wasn't eating enough. You don't have to be a nutritionist to realise that's not enough food for you, especially like a growing teenager as well. So I would just try and have this for breakfast, have a normal lunch, have the cereal for tea, and then end up binging. And that's, you know, that's why sort of my binge restrict cycle started so young, because I was trying things like this. And and with the snacks that they allowed, being fruit, veg, or another Special K product, I'm just like, this clearly doesn't make sense at all. And I'm shocked that so many people fell into it, because even on the advert from 2005, it said that 2 million women from the year before had tried this diet. So obviously it worked, and obviously everyone needs to do it too. And I'm just like, firstly, where did you get those statistics from? But secondly, if it's true, I think that's horrendous.
You know, even if it was true, it's true because you're not eating enough, like you said. And again, this is where it comes down to understanding, like, yeah, these diets may work, but you can't sustain them, so they don't work in the way that you want them to. And I think I did the Special K diet for like a week, because again, I thought Special K was gross.
But like you said, it's unsustainable. So what did I keep doing every evening? Binging. So no wonder that I couldn't keep it up. So it was just another form of like starvation, really, because it's a normal response for your body to try and overconsume after it's been underfueled. Like, that's normal. Like, I always thought that I just had lack of willpower or lack of motivation. No, it was just like my body doing what it needed to do. So it's no surprise that the brand no longer advertises this, as it was basically just encouraging people to deprive their bodies. And obviously we know that drastically cutting calories can lead to increased hunger, increased cravings, possible nutrient deficiencies. Like, I haven't checked the back of the Kellogg's packet, but I don't think you're going to do very well like supplementing 2 of your meals with Kellogg's cereal. So there's probably going to be some deficiencies in there as well, especially if you are consuming the Kellogg's snacks as well as instead of like apples or bananas or various different fruits. So that cannot be good. But obviously, like, restrictive crash diets can lead to binge eating, which often overthrows any losses that you initially make. So yes, these women may have lost 6 pounds in the first 14 days of doing this diet, but can they really do the Special K diet for the rest of their life? No. So a lot of people, like myself, ended up binging on probably 3 times as much food as I would normally have eaten that day. And any initial weight loss I would have made, I was just putting it back on again.
Yeah.
And obviously this can lead people down a path of yo-yo dieting.
Yeah, and it's really sad because, again, obviously, like we've spoken about before, like, diets and diet culture profits off people's low self-esteem. And so people get into that cycle of like yo-yo dieting, but it just gets harder and harder each time because our body is built to survive. So if it interprets something that you're doing as being in starvation mode, it will work very hard to hold on to as much weight as possible and make it harder and harder and harder for you to lose weight. And it's essentially just like fucking up your metabolism. But the thing with, again, that kind of what we're saying is that the thing with diets is that because you don't blame the diet and you don't blame the diet industry, you blame yourself, you just keep on doing this and it just feels worse and worse and worse. And that's why I think it's so important that we're, you know, putting out this information so to help empower people to, you know, close the chapter on diets, because, you know, obviously we have, and it's been amazing, best thing I've ever done.
And I think that, like, it's so true. When I look at my relationship with food before all of this, it was so free. I ate what I wanted when I wanted, but because I gave myself that permission, I never second thought what I ate after it. I never felt any guilt, and I probably ate more sweet things, but because it was balanced, I just deemed that I ate one thing and I put on a stone, and it was the binges and it was the way that my body was reacting to them because I had messed my metabolism up so much. Whereas if I'd have just carried on the way that I was going, I would have been absolutely fine. And I think it's also important to say, because people are going to listen to this and be like, we're saying that you should never ever go on a diet, and it's like, this is what we feel like, this is my experience. And I feel like, look, if it's like anything, plastic surgery, you want to go get your teeth done, if that makes you feel better, that you want to lose weight because it's going to make you, you know, perform better, be able to play with your kids more, like 100%. But there is a way of just eating balanced, still having what you want, and not having such a restrictive diet, which is no longer allowing you to enjoy times with your family, to play with your kids and go and have lunch with them. I think, it's so difficult to find that balance in which a diet isn't going to make you become obsessive with it.
Absolutely. And like a lot of the clients that we all work with, when we ask them, what do you want? Like, what's your end goal? They all say, we want to be able to eat what we want when we want and just be happy in our skin. And it really comes down to it being that simple. You've just got to ask yourself, like, are you happy right now? Are you feeling fulfilled right now? Are you feeling like you're enjoying life to the fullest right now? Are you able to enjoy a meal out with your family? Have you had a really enjoyable Easter? Or do you get excited about Christmas instead of dreading the food? Like, there's some deep questions that you have to ask yourself after like listening to our podcast to sort of decide whether you might need a little bit more food freedom in your life.
The thing is, it's like, I think when people hear like, oh, I'm not dieting, they automatically go to, well, that means I'm going to eat junk food for the rest of my life and quote unquote let myself go. And that's 100% not what we're saying. There's a difference between having a diet and being on a diet. Obviously everyone has a diet, it's just not controlling it and manipulating it and having one which is so restrictive that is clearly like just not working, but it's not sustainable and it's just not making you happy. Yeah. And I think we could do a whole episode talking about actually what food freedom means, because I think there's a lot of confusion there, and I understand why there's confusion because it's actually not really explained.
Yeah.
Like anything on the internet as well, there is going to be extremes of anything. There is like a spectrum.
Like you said there, Harriet, like I think everybody assumes, and especially when you're trying to recover from binge eating restriction, everyone's like, well, food freedom just looks to me like you're just having pizza whenever you want to, like what, so I can just have a donut and then I can go and have a McDonald's. And then it's like, do you know what, in the beginning you might be like that, but giving yourself permission, like that's what I felt like. I felt like all I'm going to want in recovery, because you know it's all that I've been having on my binges, is sweet things, is McDonald's. And then you find this way of, no, actually, like that novelty is worn off now, and I eat in a way that makes me feel the best. And I found that, look, eating McDonald's and pizza and donuts every day doesn't make me feel at my best, because I was restricting so much that I wanted those foods, but I don't say no to them. I have them now when I want them and when my body and my brain tells me I fancy them.
100%. Like, there has to be a period where you detangle yourself from diet culture and from like the previous reasons why you were motivated to diet. There has to be that period. And sometimes that period does involve eating a lot of, you know, quote unquote unhealthy food. You know what I mean by that. There will probably be that period, but like you said, 100% the novelty wears off, because that's not sustainable, because it won't feel good anymore.
again, you didn't have a balance because you were severely restricting, and then you're like, you know, you don't have a balance in another way if you're you know, some people might want to eat those foods all the time, but you know, we know for us that, like you say, that's unsustainable for you to carry on eating, let's say, less nutritionally dense foods.
100%. But
I think that'd make a really good future episode. I've got so much to say on that.
Me too. But the Special K diet, Beth, miserable, horrendous.
I think it's just important that people have this sort of self-awareness where they can sort of step back and realize that a lot of this stuff is just big marketing ploys, and it was just, all it was doing was convincing you to buy their cereal. And gosh, did it work? It worked. The marketing ploy worked very well. The diet itself, not so much. So I am going to rate that as a 0. I'm not even going to give it -2 out of 10. Yeah,
I was going to say, doing 0 point is a bit generous.
I just think the cleverness of the marketing was like amazing for sort of like 1980, like whenever they started. So I'm like, oh, I might give them 0.1, but no, you got nothing.
If you like isolate, like remove the fact that it was like highly unethical, I would respect the marketing ploy.
It's just cereal.
Just
breakfast.
But then you add in that it was pretty unethical and it wasn't based on research, and it fucked up a lot of people's, you know, mentality and mindset, you know.
And I would encourage anyone to go on YouTube and just research and just look at their adverts from like 2005, 2008, because you will be shocked. And I just think it makes me really proud, though, to think that I think the world has come so far in like 15 years. Like, I think we've done really well.
100%,
yeah, definitely.
100%.
So we have made the impromptu decision, haven't we, that we are going to do a second episode off of this, because we have so much obviously to talk about. We could talk for ages, but we again want to talk about one other diet that we've all conformed to, and also how we broke free from these diets, in the hope that we can give you listeners some advice. So that's what we've just decided, because we're like, oh my god, we could talk about this for ages.
You are getting a part 2, guys. You are welcome.
I'm so glad we're doing a part 2, because this conversation is so important. On a serious note, diets really do open the door to disordered eating and eating disorders. It activates. So important that people can hear this and start talking about it. And that's why, you know, we have a bit more of a lighter touch talking about this, because we want people to talk about this. But at the same time, you're allowed to feel angry at corporations, and, you know, you're allowed to feel angry, but forgive yourself. We've all been there. We've all been victim to diet culture. So it's not about blaming yourself. It's just about bringing that awareness in and forgiving yourself and knowing how to move forward.
100%. But so we will see you all next time for our part 2. But as always, love talking to you girls and love talking to you listeners.
Yes, absolutely.
See you later, everyone.
See you next week.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you love this episode, make sure you subscribe to us so you don't miss out. And if you really love this episode, we would also love it if you could leave us a review wherever you are listening to this podcast.
Also, if you think any of your girl or guy friends would enjoy this podcast, make sure you share it with them so we can spread the love.
And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram over at Rewrite the Rules Pod. If there's anything that you would love for us to talk about, just send us a little DM and we'll add it to our list. See you next time.
Bye.